me guess, you had Mouse ping my phone?
You know Voight put you on 3 weeks furlough, right? In case you change your mind. That ends tomorrow.
What do you want, Jay?
I want to hear you say it.
Say what?
That you're no longer my partner. That you're throwing it all away. Look me in the eye. Tell me it's over.
Are you done talking?
I don't know who you are. But tell Lindsay she made me a better cop. If you ever see her again.
So now that we've depressed you all,
you guys have to be an amazing audience today, even more amazing than normal, because Sophia comes to us after hanging out with my own personal friend, Flotus.
yeah, we're super tight.
She's actually meeting us here for shots after, so.
I can't wait.
Totally, I'm down. Margaritas.
In.
So what were you doing?
So today we actually had a really incredible panel. You guys know that the UN is in town this week and the global goals were just announced. And obviously gender equality and education access are major goals. And Glamour magazine, which reaches 1 out of every 8 women in America, they have the largest readership, has decided to launch an initiative called the Girl Project to work both in the United States and abroad at helping girls gain access to education. And they held a panel today, so not only did I hang out with Flotus, I got to speak to 1,000 girls on stage at the Apollo Theater. I was like, I didn't think this would happen to me for another 50 years. I've made it. And the First Lady, Charlize Theron,
Who was
Julia
like the
Gillard,
coolest.
who's the former prime minister. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
and also she is the coolest. And one of our amazing young women from the Philippines who works with the Girl Project and is changing things for girls in her community, all had this massive panel with Cindy Levy, who's the editor-in-chief at the magazine, and it was by far one of the most inspiring conversations I've had the pleasure to witness. And you guys were nice enough to live stream it for us, so thank you to AOL.
Hey, hashtag 62 million girls.
Yeah.
What, I mean, you've met the Obamas before. What, I guess, how do you keep it together when you're around them?
Super difficult. I knew what our schedule was because I was serving as, sort of host today. And you wait in the wings and there's Secret Service everywhere. And because we're not at the White House, it's not quite the same. We're in the theater. So there's literally people everywhere. They're checking everything every 5 minutes. And I just waited and I thought, okay, I sometimes stutter when I speak to these two. I'm getting Michelle one-on-one. She is such an inspiring woman and feminist and leader for girls everywhere. You know what to talk to her about. And today I actually was pretty together, if I do say so.
You weren't
myself.
like, oh my God, I like shoes. Like, 'cause that's what I would be.
wasn't like
I was like,
dress. Yeah,
You know,
no, I was okay. And we spoke about initiatives that she's working on. The chief of staff for her is an amazing woman at the White House named Tina Chen, who I've had the pleasure of speaking with about a range of issues over the years. And so I got to speak to both of them about what's coming, what their plans are with Let Girls Learn, the 62 Million Girls initiative that they just launched. Very, very inspiring couple of days.
Yeah, and the new season of your show premieres tomorrow, so
And
not a bad week, right?
Yeah, I'm having a really good week. It's
So
great.
your office, the policewoman that you play, the cop, the police officer, left the force and is now coming back under rather dire circumstances. So these guys obviously have not seen the first episode, so what can you kind of say?
Well, anyone who's caught up knows that at the end of season 2, Lindsay's distraught over Nadia's death, and she's blaming herself, and she doesn't know how to cope with losing a friend, and so she quits her job. She is in this headspace where she thinks that she's dangerous for the people that she's close to, and that she's just bad news and it's never going to change, and so she leaves, and we pick up with her having been on a bender now for almost a month. So just imagine how terrible you would feel. And she's not going to get out of it for herself. But when something happens to someone that she cares about, and she knows that either she shows up to help fix it, or she might lose another person, it's a non-starter. She says, I'll come in and I'll do this thing. And at the end of the day, I'll be gone. You guys can pretend like I was never here. And things happen during that day that are able to sort of shock her out of this hole that she's dug herself into, that really remind her of who she is and what she's good at, and actually the ways that she is valuable. And that sort of sets her back to thinking she might get better.
Have you ever been in a headspace where you just wanted to walk away?
Totally.
Totally?
I mean, I think we all have. And I think what's interesting about it is that if you have a job that requires you to show up, if you have children who require you to show up, if you have a partner or family or school that, you've, as so many of us I think have, you've paid an awful lot of money for your tuition, and so you're gonna show up even if you're not in a good space. We need those things that require our presence when we don't have the strength to do it for ourselves. And sometimes I think knowing that you have to do something can be the thing that can set you to heal yourself. And it was really gratifying to portray that and be honest about how difficult that is for people in this storyline.
And this is a really heavy show. Do you take it home with you or not? Or is it kind of a non-starter that it's a given that you will?
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's lessons I think we're all learning forever, right? It's not like one day you get happy and then you're just happy, or you feel confident in yourself as a person and then that lasts. It's an ebb and flow. And so for me, I've certainly gotten better now that I've worked as an actor for over 40,000 hours. I was like, Malcolm Gladwell, I got you times 4. I am better at being able to shake it off at the end of the day, but it is interesting when I sort of, what's a good analogy? It's like tripping on a cord when you're walking across a room and you didn't realize the cord was there. Like, I trip up on the emotional cords of the stories that I've portrayed, and sometimes I'm very surprised that they're still very alive for me. And with this job in particular, because we're telling real stories, and because I work with officers who will sit down and talk to me and share their stories, and they're going through things and they've seen things that none of us are aware of, and that stuff certainly sticks.
I remember I was complaining about something at work years ago to a friend of mine who's an ER doctor in DC, and he was like, keep going. Okay, let me tell you about my night. And I was like, okay. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you, I guess, what's the most challenging part for you of being on the show?
Truthfully, it starts to become a bit of a quality of life thing, and maybe this is because I'm 33 and a grown-up, and when I was 22, I was like, I don't need to sleep, and I'll travel anywhere, and you can force my call. You don't have to pay me. Who cares? Like,
I need 4 hours and I can rebound.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And who needs food? Like, we'll get coffee. And now I'm a grown-up, and I think I have different and deeper connections to my family and to my closest friends, and I live away from those people 10 months out of the year, and I work 16 hours a day, and I do a dream job, but truthfully, everything gets relative for every single one of us, I think, and there are days when the job is incredibly difficult, when it's emotionally taxing and it's 25 degrees below zero outside, and every 11 seconds someone's ripping my jacket off of me so we can shoot a scene, and I have pneumonia, and I haven't talked to my mom in 3 weeks, and I just want to cry. And now, craving that sort of sense of home and a little more regularity, it happens to me in a way that it didn't happen to me 10 years ago. So I try to be present and remind myself that there's pros and cons to any situation, and a lot of the pros to this are amazing, and they're the things that fulfill me. And then sometimes I manage to go back to my trailer at lunch and I call my mom and I cry. And I'm just like, oh my God, I miss you and it's so cold. And I have to give myself permission to be a human being with feelings and emotions, even though I have a job that most people think is amazing. Both things are true, and simultaneous realities exist, I think, for all of us.
I think for everyone, it's duality, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the fancy word for it?
Yes.
What was the aha moment for you when you realized that you wanted to be an actress?
Oh, it was such an accident. I always wanted to be a doctor. Speaking of your friend who's, an ER doctor, I wanted to be a heart surgeon. I wanted to work in a trauma wing. I wanted to work on kids. I was just so focused on it. And my school, which, again, focusing so much on education this week, I'm like emailing people who I used to go to school with, like teachers and my old headmistress, and I'm like, you guys made me the person I am. I love you so much. I'm so tremendously grateful for the place that I went to school and the kind of education that I had the opportunity to have. And in middle school at the Westridge School for Girls, which is in Pasadena, California, shout out to you guys. In 7th and 8th grade, you have this series of arts requirements, and every semester is a different requirement to kind of get kids out of their comfort zone. And I had no interest in theater. One of my best friends at the time, who is still one of my best friends today, was like crazy theater person who was always like singing in vibrato up and down the hallways of the school. And I was like,
does.
Yeah, and I was like, I love you so much, but if you sing one more fact about AP history to me, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Like, I can't do this. And so I just sort of went like, that's her thing, that's just a thing that's not mine. And I put off my theater requirement until the last semester of 8th grade, when I was supposed to be playing volleyball, and somehow thought I'd be able to say, well, I don't have to do that because I'm on the volleyball team. Yeah, they didn't bite. So I didn't get to play volleyball that semester. I was so pissed. And I did a play, and it was an aha moment that was a firework more than it was a light bulb. Suddenly, everything I loved about literature and storytelling and all of the books that I'd ever read and all of the films that I'd ever watched and all of this stuff, there was something about studying a play and marking it up the way that I would mark up my books and realizing this is the connection. This is taking a story and turning it into someone's real life and someone's experience. And it was right around when American History X came out, and I was so just gutted by Edward Norton in that film. And it was like all these puzzle pieces clicked and my little brain just overloaded. And I started doing so much theater, and I would act in plays, and I would be the prop master, and I would work in the lighting department, and I would build sets, and I would do anything that I could to just learn the space. And I think it took me until my junior year in high school to go home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, do you remember how I said I was gonna go to medical school? I want to be an actor.
And
my parents were like, great. That sounds like a really good idea. My father is a brilliantly talented photographer. And I found this out much later, that my mom was like, well, this is your fault. You turned your hobby into a career. She thinks it's easy. We have to let her do this or she'll hate us. She'll get bored in a year. She'll get so bored. And then here we are.
Here we are.
And it's my parents' favorite story to tell over dinner.
When did you realize that you actually could make a living at this?
Oh God, that's tricky. Because it's not easy. And even when you're working really regularly and everyone thinks you have so much money, you're like, I don't have so much money. I know who does, but it's not me. It's a weird thing where like you kind of don't really get paid anything, and then you make these jumps, but it takes a really long time to do that. And I remember, God, I think I was 18 and I worked for days on this movie and I made $600. And I was like, this is more money than anyone has ever paid me to do anything in my whole life. And I was so excited about it. And my parents, my dad is really particular and loves to save and is very responsible. And he was like, let me break down what $600 means, because at the time I was in college. And I'm super lucky that my parents were able to send me to a great college. And he was like, that means nothing. Like, let's look at your overhead, which you are so lucky I'm paying for, because my parents never paid for me to do anything. And he sort of broke it down, and I went, ooh, I'm gonna have to work for so many weeks on so many movies to pay you back for stuff. Cool.
Okay, that's a buzzkill.
Yeah,
like he should. Like you have this 600.
But so good, because otherwise I
know.
probably would have like cashed my check and paid my taxes and bought a jacket.
Well,
and
that's
he
what I
was
would've
just
done.
like, I don't think so.
Carrie Washington was just here, and she was like, "Oh, my first big splurge was a laptop." I was like, "Girl, my first big splurge was a Marc Jacobs bag. Like, here, this is why you know."
She's so cool.
I mean, she's really cool.
Yeah.
What was your actual first big splurge? Like, where you were like, "I don't care how much this costs, I'm getting it."
Wow. So I had done a commercial when I was in high school, and you know, anytime they air, and this was back in the day before all the renegotiations of everything that ruined this game, but at the time, you know, they would air and you'd get checks, and it was like, to a 16-year-old kid, it was like found money. I just didn't know what to do with myself, and I saved and I saved and I saved and I saved all of that because my parents are responsible. And I think I was 18 when I wanted to get a car, and I convinced my dad, if I was being responsible and working for him, to split it with me. I was like, this is how much money I have, and I'll give you all of it if you match it, and I'll work it off. And then I held an awful lot of reflectors and ran a lot of film to the lab, because of the, you know, nothing was digital then either. So I would just play chicken with the traffic on Highland in LA and run stuff to a photo lab called A&I. Yeah, it was great. It was a great summer.
And do you think that did that establish your work ethic? I'm sure it did, right?
Yeah, I think so. There's something to be said for, again, not having a choice. I mean, you just show up. It's a little bit like a tornado. It pulls you in and you're along for the ride, you know. You can be tired and you can be sick, but you can't go home. So you better figure out how to enjoy it. And I think that's actually a really good life lesson. I think that the madness of what it's like to work on sets, particularly in television and particularly on a show like this, that just is so intense and has so many moving parts, and we might be on a break from a scene, but we're shooting with a second unit. We're doing a stunt sequence over there. I mean, we never stop moving. The sort of larger metaphor is that you're along for the ride, so enjoy it. And there may be stuff that's hard, and sometimes you want to cry, but, you know, you can do that more often, or you can do it less often and find really exciting things that are happening and have unexpected conversations with the men and women on your crew and people who come in to direct. And I just find that when I really set that intention and I choose to be fascinated, I am reminded how completely amazing the fact that comes out of 250 people's daily efforts. Like, it scrambles my mind, and then I kind of feel like a kid in a candy store.
I mean, it is pretty amazing that you're on this great show and that you get to meet #FLOTUS. I mean, FLOTUS.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's, like, what's not to love?
It's pretty great.
Pretty great life. What of yourself do you see in your character?
I think that the reason that I identified with her first and foremost was the fact that she's a person who is more committed to social justice than anything, because for me, that's it. I'm very lucky that I have a larger megaphone because of my job, but I'd be doing the stuff that I do in my personal life, working on things like the Girl Project and working on education access globally and working on environmental rights. I was doing that before I had a platform, and now I'm just really lucky that I get to motivate other people to do it with me. So there was something about that inexplicable desire to make the world around you better that I went, oh, I get that. And then I read the script, and she's totally no nonsense. And I was like, I'm sort of at the point in my life where I just pardon my French, I have no fucks left to give. Like, let's do this. And I was like, oh, I get her on that. And then, you know, the fact that she was a teenager who was pseudo-homeless and sold drugs and did drugs and was a mess. I was like, I don't understand that in any way. My parents are lovely people. But that's something that I can create because I understand that to be a kind of reality that victimizes young women in the world. And so it feels like a job with more purpose for me personally than any job I've ever had before.
And tell me something about Connie Britton, because I know you guys are friends. And who does not love themselves?
I mean,
Tammy Taylor.
That woman, she is the best. She's the best woman. I joke, one of my best friends is a very inspiring guy named Jedediah Jenkins, who helped run Invisible Children for many years. If any of you follow him on Instagram, there you go. See, you listen when I say those things on the internet. He was searching for his purpose, and he quit his job and spent a year and a half biking from Oregon to Patagonia, 10,000 miles, meeting people, writing what is now half of a book that he'll probably have finished by the end of the year. And Jed and I are both crazy about the world and just a little crazy. And he's generally my date to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and we knew that Connie was there, and we were like, our only mission tonight is to be friends with Connie Britton. And he was like, we're sort of like those people who probably say that about you, who like freak you out when they grab you on the sidewalk. And I was like, well, we're not.
I love you.
Yeah, just like, hey. And I'm like, rapists do that. Don't do that. And I was like, I will not rape grab Connie Britton. And you're really good at talking to people because you have worked with heads of state and global leaders. You're not intimidated by anybody. So while I'm being awkward, you can woo her, and then we'll all be friends. And it actually basically worked out just like that. Nobody grabbed her. We had this amazing night, and then it turned into this great dinner date in LA not long after. And now we all sort of like fly around and visit each other. And I got to spend the weekend with her here. And she is the kind of woman that I aim to be, that I'm proud to know, that I'm proud to call my friend. She's so smart. She's made her entire career happen because she's brilliant and thoughtful and not afraid. She's so unintimidated in our business, where very often women can be marginalized or placed in these sort of side characters. She'll be the first person to step up and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't sign up for that. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna talk about. This is what matters. And I'm just like, yes, Tammy Taylor. Get it.
I love it. Oh my God, and her kid is so
cool.
cute.
He's the best.
I mean.
He's the best baby. Yeah, it's a whole really great thing that's happening there.
All right, guys, I'm sure you guys have some questions, so shoot. We have time for a couple.
Hi, Sophia. I
Hello.
am super excited for tomorrow's premiere. And I guess my question is, in the past, like you could tell that like you've really given yourself to your characters, and like there's a piece of you in there. I mean, you even said it, like the fierceness of your characters comes from you. And you know, the last character you played for so many years kind of left this like legacy or mark for a lot of young women. And I guess even though Erin is in this really what I call a dark shit phase in her life, what kind of legacy or mark do you want her to leave, no matter how long we have her in our lives? What would you like to see her mark or legacy to be?
I really want it to be about honesty. There's this thing that's been happening, and last year, I don't know if it was maybe the Golden Globes, Maggie Gyllenhaal addressed it really beautifully, how as this really great tidal wave of characters for women
For playing real women.
have really been getting more powerful in television, especially, and in film. There were all these questions that all these girls were being asked, myself included. Well, how does it feel to play such a strong woman? And I was like, great. And then about the 10th time someone asked me that, I thought, you know what's really funny? I've never heard you ask a single one of my male counterparts how it feels to play a strong man. What does that mean exactly to you guys? And I really like that we are getting to a place where women in television are strong, but I want them to be real. And just as we don't want to be the sexy girlfriend, we don't want to be the like tough shrew, neither of those people are real. Women are brilliant and strong and capable and tough and fragile and emotional and tender and sensitive and so many more things. The list goes on and on. I know that personally I am all of those things, and I am all of those things simultaneously, as are you, and as I would imagine every woman I'm staring at right now is. We are complex and multifaceted, and I appreciate that while I get to play a woman who is badass and tough and all of these things, she's not expected to be just that. I like that she breaks. I like that she's imperfect. I like that even though she is a heroic person,
she goes on benders
in unheroic fashion sometimes. I just want her to be a real person that the women who watch my show can say, I feel like she would get me, and I feel like she would watch my back. That's the goal for me.
Well, it's like guys, right? They never get asked about the work-life balance and, how do you juggle everything? I mean, when was the last time?
Yeah, has a man ever been asked, do you feel guilty as a parent
for not being there
and going and working? It's like,
how do you feel about aging? I mean, has anyone asked Tom Hanks that?
Has anyone ever asked Robert Redford that?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So for me, it's exciting to be able to shift the conversation to more important things and also to be able to talk about it, to call it out, to be understanding about it. I think it's important when something fires you up, and even if it makes you enraged or indignant, to not just get sharp about it, to greet that sort of with tenderness, but also to be clear, to sort of make your point. I was asked in an interview recently by someone who said, you and your group of female friends, I've looked back for years over your Instagram and your Twitter, and you guys are so supportive and you're so tight. And you really have this squad. And now with this tour that's happening, there's all of this attention on Taylor Swift's squad of girls. And this is where it got weird. She went, so if you were gonna build your dream squad, who would be in it?
You mean fantasy football, but for friends?
Exactly, and I was like, I'm sorry, you're asking me about my friends, but you're asking, I don't think I understand the question. And she said, well, if you were gonna pick like women who are just amazing to be in your squad, your dream squad, and I went, the women who are in my squad, my best friends are my dream squad. Like, no offense, I don't particularly need to look at, some fabulous famous person and go like, ooh, I wanna be her friend. If I ever meet her and she's cool, then maybe that happened with Connie, but my best friends like Alexis Jones and Emily Greener and Nia Batts and Azita Erdekani and Lauren Parsakian, like those girls are my dream squad and they're my reality. And again, I just thought, you look at female friendships as a commodity and you would never ask, no one's ever asking like, Matt Damon, who's in your dream squad?
Hey, Chris Pratt.
Never happening.
If you could go through Instagram.
Yeah, people are just like, oh, Matt and George and Ben, they're so great. And I'm like, my friends are great. They don't need to be replaced at all.
Now, really, how do you balance work and family? No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Well,
I'm totally joking.
My dogs don't require as much effort. I don't know.
All right, next question. I have this rule where if I don't ask a guy a question, I would never ask a woman that question. Like,
I
would
that.
never ask a guy, like, how do you stay in
so
beach
trim?
shape,
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm nervous. Well, I wanted to ask you about how, like, as a person, Brooke Davis inspired me and all of my friends since we're like super young.
Thank you.
And I wanted to know how do you transmit that? And with Erin Lindsay, do you see some like similarities in the characters, and how can you, being such a stable woman, transmit so much power to like teenagers? Well, I'm not a teenager anymore, but when I was, and all my friends, how can you like do that?
Again, I think it's interesting because there's things about each character that I can't understand, that I can't relate to, and especially in the beginning of One Tree Hill, I'd get scripts and call the writers and go, I am not doing this. I am not parading around half naked in a jacuzzi. This is not appropriate behavior for a 16-year-old. And by the way, I was 21 at the time. Like, I don't know who I think I was talking to. I was like, we are not teaching young girls to do this. And they were like, aren't girls your age doing keg stands at frat parties? Like, what are you talking about? But I realized that, again, people's flaws are just as important as their strengths and as their greatest attributes. And to just sort of unapologetically play women who are who they are, who don't make excuses for themselves, who are willing to see their faults and willing to take constructive criticism, but also not willing to be pushed around or subjugated or treated improperly, that feels important to me. And maybe it's because I've had to learn those lessons for myself, and they're sort of non-negotiables. So then they become non-negotiables for women I play, because I don't know how to portray a woman who I just don't know how to be anymore. It's a learning process, but it means a lot to me to know that so many women feel that way. You know, I talk to you guys online all the time because I love that connection and that community, and to know that that has been sort of this through line, I go, okay, so I'm doing something right. And on the days when I feel like I'm totally insane and I'm in, you know, the doubt spiral and I'm questioning what I know about any of this and why I have a right to do any of this, I look to you all and I go, well, there's many millions of us working on this thing. And there's many millions of you who are showing up for that sort of guidance, if I may, although that feels maybe heavy-handed, just that community. And I go, this is not an accident. This is not, this means something. The proof is in its existence, and that helps me on the bad days. And on the good days, I'm like charging on a mission, and I see how fast you all show up to sign up to charge with me, and I'm like, yes, these people are the best. We have a really good squad.
And I think we have time for one more question.
Cool.
Hi, Sophia.
Hello.
My question is, what is the difference for you between filming in a movie and filming in a TV show?
Oh, man. They're kind of night and day. You know, with a film, you have your script from the beginning, and there's generally a longer prep time. So you might get a script for a movie and go on the audition in March, and then go back for a callback in April, and then everything's happening, and people are being cast, and the movie starts filming in July or August, and then you go and you work on it for 2 or 3 months. It's this long process where you've had this 100 pages, and you know everything that's coming. And then in TV, you get a script, if you're lucky, 5 days before you shoot it, and sometimes the night before the episode starts, and that's panic. And it's just so fast. And so while you have longer to develop a film, it's also a closed window. And TV is more frenetic, but you have so many episodes, and if you're lucky, so many years to explore characters, to develop things, to see what your audience resonates with, and pursue those sort of light bulbs that go off. And so they're very different, really technically, and then also in the amount of, you know, time that they take. Movies are like summer camp, and television shows are full-time employment.
Wait, but the most important question, who has the better craft services?
Ooh.
Budget notwithstanding, like if you had to generalize.
As long as you're not talking about like
Michael Bay
guerrilla-style
versus,
independent
like,
films.
Yeah,
movies have way better food.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Thank you, guys.